Up. Looks like we're ready. If y'all have not seen my shirt, which I think looks completely awesome, my fiance bought it for me. It says "You'll float too." Anyways, guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of the Streamline Podcast here on the Narik Chase channel. I'm your boy Narik Chase, and this is episode 44. If I hadn't messed up the numbers and everything, episode 44. We have a very special video out there, especially for fans of Final Fantasy, such as me. Now, in this video, because I'm always loving to do comparisons and stuff, check out the website. I do a lot of these versus posts and stuff, which I will eventually get to update the YouTube channel with. So stay tuned for those, guys. But go check out the ones on the website first. They're in the description box below. Go to the damn website and check it out. But anyways, we are going to be having a three-way battle between the Final Fantasy movies, Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, and Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15. Now, I should have taken a little bit more time out to write down the notes and stuff, but I did not. I'm going to go out the dome because I'm good like that. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Now, I do enjoy the films, and all the films do have their share of good things as well as bad things. I know people didn't like Spirits Within because it wasn't the traditional Final Fantasy, but I still enjoy it as a freaking movie. I do like Advent Children, and I do like Kingsglaive, even though a second viewing had to get me into it because it just felt too confusing. But having said that, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, in terms of actual story, plot, and all of that good stuff, each film does have its strengths and does have its weaknesses. In Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, these basically dead alien ghosts come to end up crashing into Earth after the destruction of their planet, and now they're wreaking havoc on Earth. And it's up to this woman named Aki, along with other I'm stuttering. It's basically about this scientist is trying to get rid of these alien ghosts called phantoms who are pretty much destroying the planet. It's a really interesting concept, and it does a good job of what it does, even though they could have done a little bit better with some of the more predictable twists. It's a bit more explanation into and exposition into the phantoms, even though we do get an idea what they are and where they're from and stuff like that. But I think the story itself is pretty good, even though it does get very slow. I will say that there are some great sequences in it that are pretty cool, but it does get pretty slow. In Advent Children, it picks up after the events of Final Fantasy VII, the video game, which you have to play the game to actually know what was going on. But the film does give you a little introduction about a recap of what happened in Final Fantasy VII. And in this story, the characters having to deal with these new bad guys who are basically trying to bring back Sephiroth by fusing themselves with what's left of Genova, and it's up to the good guys, mainly Cloud, to stop them. So there is that. It's pretty fast paced, and this is only like a movie for the fans, because I don't think that people that haven't played the game would actually appreciate the story and the characters and such. But the story, because I am a fan and I know what's going on, I know what the geostigma and the earth and materia. I understand what all that stuff is. So to me, it's a pretty good story. And also, and lastly, with Kingsglaive, the story is basically these two countries are at war with each other, and it's supposed to be a treaty signed, but it ends up being basically bullshit. So this soldier of this elite force has to try to stop it, try to foil it. It's a really interesting and pretty good story. It does have its predictable moments, and it does get slow too in certain points, especially when there's no action jumping off. But when it jumps off, jumps off pretty good. Now, all of them each have good stories. And in terms of grading the stories, I'd have to break it down by certain concepts. As a story, Final Fantasy, as like a solid story, I would say Final Fantasy Spirits Within is probably the most stable one. It has the most solid and believable and plausible storyline, and it doesn't require all this research into the series. I had to play Final Fantasy 15 and do a bit more research to understand what the hell Kingsglaive was going on. But when I understood all of the key players, the places and stuff like that, I understood the characters. And like I've said, if you are a fan of Final Fantasy VII, you will appreciate the story of Advent Children more than you would if you hadn't seen the movie, because you wouldn't really know what was going on. So I think the most stable of all, and I think one of the core, with the best story, will go to Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. Now, it's not to say that the story doesn't have its share of flaws, but a person who to just sit there and watch the movie and understand what's going on, yes, you would say The Spirits Within is probably the best one. In terms of characters, uh, I would just have to give it to, of course, Final Fantasy VII. The bad guys are pretty entertaining for the most part. I don't know. The main bad guys are Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo. Yazoo ain't nothing. You'll get most of the humor from Laz, and Kadaj is pretty much the badass of the group. And of course, you get those fan favorites. You got the badass Cloud. Tifa has a freaking awesome moment. And then you get all of the traditional characters of Final Fantasy VII, and this big climactic battle towards the end. So there is that. Vincent, Rufus, like all the characters are great. They're memorable. They're fun. They each have pretty cool moments. Final Fantasy Spirits Within, interesting characters, but there's not enough given to them. I basically the four main characters is the general guy, who's a complete dick. General Hines, a complete dick. Of course, he's going to be the main antagonist. You have Dr. Sid, you have Aki Ross, and you have Gray. Those are really the main four people, and they're kind of tropes. They're kind of tropes, but they each has interesting qualities that makes them stand out from everyone else. Gray does have this team of characters. What's their names? Um, it's Ryan, Neil, and Jane. And I don't think that they actually got a moment. They're interesting characters, but you don't know really much about them. They're not really that memorable. In Kingsglaive, you got Nyx Ulrich. Awesome, badass character. Dude is just freaking amazing. You got Luna Freya. She was a freaking great female lead character. Just completely badass. Really enjoyed her character. Um, Regis is the king of Insomnia, and he's a pretty cool character too. He does some pretty badass things. There's a couple other characters, but the two other characters that really stand out for me in Kingsglaive is Ardeen, who is the bad guy of Final Fantasy 15, the game, because he's just freaking. I love he has such great personality. That's what makes him so badass. Like this moment, he's in there talking to Regis and all his council and everything about what they're going to be doing to try to stop this war, and it's just the confidence, the cockiness. He's just a great character all around. Really enjoyed his character. And Gloka, whatever the armored guy was, he was pretty badass. That's one thing I've always graded my villains on is, again, personality, badass. Ardeen has personality. Glauca is badass. So I really enjoy those characters as well. Oh, I did forget Final Fantasy Advent Children. The most memorable character in the freaking movie, Sephiroth. Sephiroth was freaking awesome in this movie. This is the Sephiroth that's put the standard for Sephiroth in video games. The voice performances, how he attacked, the stuff that he said, his overall look, freaking awesome. He's one of those villains that's got interesting. It's not like a fleshed out personality, but it's like a pretty cool dark personality, as well as just straight up being badass. And I really enjoyed that character. So in terms of the characters, I would say it would be a mixed bag between Kingsglaive and Advent Children. Really enjoyed the characters and for the nostalgia feeling and some of the most great, memorable, fun moments in Advent Children. But I have to say, I did appreciate what I saw in Kingsglaive, the characters that I really liked in that movie, and who I actually wanted to see more in the freaking game about, but that's neither here nor there. So in terms of the characters, we would just give it both to Kingsglaive and Advent Children. Now, voice performances, everybody, all three movies, fantastic job. Love the voice performances. Even when it goes down to the visual effects of all the movies, fan freaking tastic. The realism is just awesome. All three movies do a fantastic job with the realism. In certain and it kind of differentiates a bit because in Advent Children and Kingsglaive you get a lot more action sequences, fast paced, more mid air type battles, more chaotic battles. So the camera angles and stuff get crazy, visually stunning action sequences, sometimes to the point where you get a bit lost about what's going on, but you cannot deny just how beautiful and how spectacular the films look. Now, on those alone, they would push it up a bit more over Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, but Final Fantasy The Spirits Within has a great looking movie. The action sequence, for what it has, is done really good, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm not going to say just because those two have all these action sequences and they look really good and spectacular that it's just going to take that away from what we do get in Spirits Within. So, and on the nutshell, these two are all three of them are pretty much equal, especially the cast and the visual effects. When it comes to the sound, the musical compositions, hands down, Advent Children takes the cake. Some of the most badass sequences, musical sequences from the video games have been completely remixed for this movie, and they are freaking phenomenal on almost every stinking level. Sephiroth's theme during their fight, awesome. Tifa's theme when she's fighting Lies, when they remade that song, great. Some of the sequels, even with the intro recap, I loved that theme as well. So they did a fantastic job, and even in some of the more other sequences that aren't even remixes of the game, just originals for this movie are just freaking fast paced and are freaking amazing. So I definitely have to say Advent Children takes the cake when it comes to the sound. Because all of them sound really good, but that musical composition, Advent Children just took that bad boy. So I really enjoy that. In terms of the writing and the direction and stuff like that, I think all of them are somewhat on even footing, but I would say Advent Children is probably the most stable of the writings because no, I don't want to say just Advent Children, because there are sequences, there are things about Kingsglaive that I did not like when it comes to the writing. You introduced all of these characters, didn't really give us much of what was going on with those characters. Crow, this fine ass chick that they introduced early in the movie, and she just like died off. You don't know nothing about this chick except that she lived outside of she was from outside of the city. The Kingsglaive, I wanted to know a bit more about them and some more of the characters. Didn't really know much about their characters. Noctis, even though he's such an important character in the freaking movie, doesn't really get a chance to appear in the movie. And the character of Glockout, which this is the biggest problem with Final Fantasy with Kingsglaive, was it felt like like it wasn't connected to the video game. Things that happened in the movie hardly had any bearing on what was going on in the freaking game, and I really hated that about this movie. It's like Glauco, whatever this guy's name is, the shiny knight guy. Like he would have been a great antagonist to fight in the game, but of course he died in the movie. Auric, his character never was introduced in the game. None of the characters in the freaking game introduced in the freaking movie except Luna Freya, and they are two different Luna Freyas because the Luna Freya in the movie was badass. The one in the damn game sucked. So, and some of the action sequences, like particularly the end battle, it felt a little bit too chaotic because you have Auric fighting the shiny knight, and then you have these giant statues that are fighting these ships and stuff. And then, like I said, and there's characters that you want to get a bit more of a feel for, but you don't really get a chance to. Specifically, the Kingsglaive, which they were pretty cool, but at the same time they kind of sucked. But Auric was like the most badass one. So, but and they could have did a little bit better in terms of spirits within. It slowed down, and yes, that's to give us a bit more exposition on the characters, mainly Aki and Gray, and Aki's relationship with the Doc, and then General Hines and everything. But it doesn't like give us like a bad like this is a bad like the most badass moment in this entire movie to me was the sequence where they were trying to get this plant that they needed to for this operation to get rid of the Phantoms, and like all of the Phantoms started attacking them. So they're fighting the Phantoms, and they're trying to fight the Phantoms and stuff, and then at the same time they're trying to escape. And there's this pretty cool flight sequence where they're trying to fly through the Phantoms, and I was like, okay, that's fucking amazing, but like that is the most memorable moment out the freaking movie, really. Outside of the action scene, like the movie is supposed to be, if it's a good enough movie like this, you're supposed to remember everything in between the big action sequences. Most people that watch the movie don't remember what happened between the big action sequence. I do because I watched the movie like 100 times, but like there's like some part like and again it goes back to what I was saying about the characters, the three squad members of Gray's unit. You don't know much about them. So what? Jan likes what's the guy? Jan likes Neil, and but she doesn't. She's too tough to admit it. Like that should have been a pretty interesting story, plot, subplot that could have been explored. You get Ryan, who's the black guy. Like he was talking about his dad was a soldier too, like him, and he died fighting the Phantoms, I believe, in the few. But they never really explored that. You get a little bit exposition on General Hines' character about why he acts the way he acts because the Phantoms killed his family. But they don't really explore it enough with his character. Like, and there is a certain part where you see that even though he is a complete dick, that you can see that he has remorse for some of the actions that he does, and I like that because that makes a good villain, makes him deep. But they don't really explore it enough. They don't really have more of this banter between Aki and Hines, which I would have liked. And it's pretty cool. And with the Final Fantasy Advent Children, again, it feels like I don't want to say it's decent. It's good too. It's good. Like it's good writing, but there are aspects of it I wish they could explore a little bit more. Again, characters. What are the other characters doing right now outside of Cloud? When you see Cloud, most of the time he's brooding. He's not really doing anything. The villains, what their motivation, like they were poorly written. I know each one of the characters, Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo, are supposed to represent a certain part of Sephiroth. Yeah, Laz was like his strength, represents his strength. I think Kadaj represents his will, and I think Yazoo represents his looks or something like that. But like Yazoo had to be like the weakest link out of all that. Like I wish they would have written him out or given him much more badass character trait or something outside of him like sneaking around and doing stuff. But having said that, like I wish they could have been written a little bit better. Like where the hell were they? Were they in suspended animation? Were they born after he died? Sephiroth died or something like that? What happened to the rest of the Cloud crew? And also they written in Rufus, the Turk guys, Rufus and Rude, and I liked their characters. I liked how important they were. They had some really freaking awesome moments in the movie, but I wish it was the original characters, the good guy characters. I mean, they're good guys in this movie too, but I wish it was the crew that, I wish it was the crew that was doing that stuff, fighting these guys and not showing up just at the end. Uh, but like I said, as far as the writing for each, I think they all have their ups and downs. They all could be better in some aspects, and they, like I said, they all have some pretty interesting, and especially when it comes to like plot holes and stuff. There are some plot holes in each one. The action sequences are more prominent in the Advent Children and Kingsglaive, and I think Kingsglaive gets a little bit more chaotic with it, which is a little bit more fine tuned, as well as some of the storytelling. But for the most part, I would say they're all about even because I can't say which one had a terrible script, and I really can't say which one had the best written script. So all in all, when it comes to these movies, this is how I would rank them based on the scoring system I just did. The scoring system would go as Advent Children being number one, Kingsglaive number two, Spirits Within number three. That seems about fair to me. Now, in the comment section below, guys, let me know how would you rate these? Which one's the best? Which one's the worst? Did you agree with my points? Did you agree with the way I rank these movies? And also tell me which one of them has the best character? Is it Cloud? Is it Auric? Or is it Aki? And I'm not just saying just Final Fantasy VII, fans just say Cloud, but give everybody a fair chance. In fact, don't even just say those three. Out of all the movies, name me some of your favorite characters, or even your favorite moments from each of the movies. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what's going on the Narik Chase channel, as well as stay tuned on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do upload more videos, and we'll definitely catch you guys later. Peace out.